head back that way, probably.
Yeah.
He says he comes in there all the time and gets gas, and he said that's definitely what it is.
We don't have a tag, do we?
No. Not at this point.
He was going to look back through his cards and see if he couldn't get a tag on it.
Okay.
And he said he'd call you.
Yeah.
That's where he lives.
We don't have enough. People have needs. Let's make an extra effort. And they did it collectively. And this is just saying we already know these organizations and these places. We've already contributed to them perhaps once, but this is that extra, that bonus. Give a buck. You know, regardless of what you've already done, give an extra buck to help these already existing organizations to provide food and shelter.
Addiction to alcohol and other drugs is a problem that continues to grow. Presbyterian Hospital feels it has come up with a way to help those with a drug problem who really want help. The hospital has started a chemical dependency treatment center. The facility will offer both inpatient and outpatient treatment. Today, hospital officials held an open house to explain the program. Counseling and involving family members will be used to treat those with a drug dependency. There is a special excitement about the outpatient unit because of its added benefits.
The cost of the program is a lot less. And a benefit to industry is the patient won't have to be off of work for 35, 40 days. So there's a number of things that the patient is benefiting the family, and industry or the employer will also benefit from the fact that they can get the person help and they will not have to be off the job.
For any additional information about the outpatient unit, you may call 235-8364. Officials say they are prepared to handle as many clients as possible. Ed Stewart, Action for the Chemical Dependency Treatment Center.
The Parks and Recreation Department had a $12 million budget last year, but this year there will be some reductions. For example, cuts in maintenance people at city parks. The litter won't be picked up as frequently. There will be fewer trees. Decisions will be made on where to plant flowers. They won't be blooming everywhere. Swimming pools will also be affected. Many of the pools with free admission will be closed. The larger pools will stay open and provide swimming lessons. Oklahoma City had the third largest number of city pools in the country, but now people will just have to travel further if they want to swim.
This department has to take cuts just like everyone else, and even though I feel very strongly about what we do and the value of it to the community, obviously the financial picture dictates cuts in all areas, and we certainly feel that we have to bear the brunt of those as well.
In a time of economic hardship, many people turn to the city parks for recreation rather than traveling out of town. If the cuts are approved at next Tuesday's council meeting, the parks will still be there, but maybe not as nice as they once were. Bella Shaw, Action 4.
The meeting had been billed as a consultation with former DHS head Lloyd Rader. Instead, Rader had been excused, and the meeting became a sometimes heated exchange between senators and members of the current DHS administration. Senator Gene Stipe said he was concerned with the department's priorities, citing the closing of part of the neonatal care unit beds at Children's Memorial Hospital. And committee chairman E. Melvin Porter charged the department wasn't cutting fat in administrative salaries.
But the bottom line question is you have not apparently dealt with salaries as to cutting some of the fat out and making a determination whether or not those salaries appear to be excessive in your administration.
Senator, I think $15.6 million is a pretty fair chunk of fat.
The department says they have more money to operate this year than they had last year, but their expenses have also increased, even with cost-saving measures. Bellman says he wishes he could fund more programs, but the money simply isn't available. Charles Schnitzer, Action 4 at the state capitol.
And the intention will be to consider circulating an initiative petition to reform the Corporation Commission requiring 7 members elected every 2 years so that there'll be better accountability and better representation, and to do it on a nonpartisan ballot to take politics out of it and hopefully prohibit contributions from those people regulated by the Commission.
Washington in the entranceway between the House Office buildings and the United States Capitol, and I might give Metcalf.
Well, President Reagan's own budget calls for a tax increase of $235 billion. The difference is that the president's tax increases don't go into effect until 1985, and the congressional budget tax increases would go into effect in 1984 fiscal year.
Director for a while, and then upon the departure, the retirement, or the leaving at that time. But I think the interest right now is to give you the opportunity of
to meet with many members. I'm not aware of any available funds that the department's not taking advantage of, but certainly I'll do what I can to make sure that it does receive all the funding that it can qualify for from the federal level.
Does that mean that you don't believe there are additional federal funds available for this type of department at this time?
I don't want to comment on that. I don't want to get in an argument with Senator Porter at this stage. I don't honestly know of any. That's all I can say.
I feel like you've gone from the frying pan into the fire.
Taking people in tow, really, who are healthy, at the healthy end of the spectrum. That's a diet, and avoiding obesity generally. We've gone probably about as far as we practically can go in reducing cardiovascular mortality from just therapy. And that, obviously, if you can't do that, then what else can we do? And the answer is prevention. People showed that they were willing to change their lifestyle for something that wasn't going to happen just right then, but maybe 5 years, 10 years, 25 years from then, such as the increase in exercise, the attention to diet, and for the very first time, adult males decrease their frequency of smoking. Unfortunately,
mood at the Boley State School for Boys is one of uncertainty. Governor Nye and the Commission for Human Services decided the school should be closed and to transfer the facility into a minimum security prison. With about 49 boys at the school now, school personnel outnumbers pupils by 3 to 1. The boys will be sent to other state facilities or back home. However, much of the school staff has no idea what will be their fate. Teacher Jeannie Banks feels only some workers might be qualified to work at a state prison.
We have been told that we can remain here and just make the transfer over to the corrections payroll. So, you know, that's a little bit of security there for the school staff. But as far as the institution staff is concerned, you know, so no.
The school superintendent, Robert Buckner, regrets that some of his employees could end up jobless after investing years of their lives at the training center.
We have people worked there a lot of years, 15, 10, 18, 19, 20-some years and all, and that has invested a lot of human energy, and they have a lot of personal investment in the institution, and being a human element as we are, there has to be some hurt there.
Governor Nye arrived at the Boley Community Center this afternoon to explain his decision. Most of those at the town meeting felt the city should have had some say in transferring the school into a prison. Nye told the crowd it was a matter of economics, and he tried to ensure school workers they would get special consideration for jobs at the soon-to-be prison.
So somebody's going to say, what's the difference between us and Whitaker? They said they didn't want one and they didn't have one because the law has not been passed putting a prison at Whitaker. The law was specific. It said to the director, close one of the juvenile facilities and transfer it to corrections.
Ed Stewart, Action 4 in Boley.
And we will continue to keep the Baptist Hospital open, and we will have access roads to the businesses in the community. Our goal is to make as much progress as possible with as little inconvenience as possible.
We expected, you know, a flow of traffic today because a lot of people don't go out of town on the holiday weekends anymore.
Legal Aid contends most of the juvenile abuse was taking place at 3 institutions: Boley, Helena, and here at Whitaker. Even though those homes are shutting down, Legal Aid wants to proceed further in its case on abuse.
The remaining institutions have been specifically involved in this lawsuit. Second of all, the administrators in the state office who are responsible for the overall operation and supervision of these institutions, many of them are the very same administrators who over the last 5 years have either initiated or at least condoned the kind of abusive practices that have been disclosed by the lawsuit and the media and the U.S. Senate subcommittee.
The attorney for the Department of Human Services, Charles Waters, thinks the state has bent over backwards to clean up the allegations.
For example, deprived kids are no longer placed in institutions. Staffing has been upgraded in all the institutions. Provisions are made to ensure that the kids receive proper treatment for mental health problems. Solitary confinement's been eliminated altogether, and that was one of the big allegations. Restraints are prohibited. I really think it's time for the department and Legal Aid to get together on this lawsuit and work out some conclusion. It's foolish for us to be spending time and energy litigating issues that no longer exist.
Legal Aid counters that the improvements are all on paper. It wants a full year of court-ordered compliance before court proceedings are dropped. So the battle wages on in the juvenile abuse controversy, and now new faces at the Department of Human Services will have to do the fighting. Bella Shaw, Action 4.
The Lake Hefner plant is one of 3 that provides water to Oklahoma City and its suburbs. It's also one of 2 that will receive part of the money asked for through the rate increase. The dollars are needed for expansion and an overall updating of equipment. But if the request is granted, residents of Oklahoma City would read a $4 increase on their bills, which means residents of Warr Acres would find an $8 addition for their use of metropolitan water. That double figure has caused trouble between the 2 cities since 1977. When Oklahoma City decided Warr Acres should pay twice the rate. Now Warr Acres says it's had enough, and the suburb's taking its case and bill to court, but not for cheaper rates, for the right of its own water system.
We do feel like we have an inherent right to have our own system under our own authority as a municipal government, and this is what we want. And we're not really saying, Oklahoma City, give us some money. We're saying, let us do what is right and fair for the people of Warr Acres.
The mayor of Warr Acres says his city has tried to settle this argument out of court. They asked Oklahoma City to sell them their water service, and the answer was a $94 million price tag. The mayor of Warr Acres says that's 5 times the cost of a new system, so he had to say no.
We think that's a fair price and what it would take for us to get our investment out of it. Obviously, they disagree with that, and that's why there are courts, and the court can decide if they want to do that, what a fair price is.
It'll be some time before this problem of years is settled, and it'll probably be the courts who'll have the final say. But until then, Lake Hefner and its fellow lakes will continue to supply water to Oklahoma City and Warr Acres. Sherry Sellers, Action 4.
$250 members of the United Food and Commercial Workers Union went back to work this morning at the Wilson Foods plant in Oklahoma City. Early yesterday morning, Wilson officials began suspending union employees for alleged production slowdowns. By late morning, all union members were out of the plant. Union officials say they were forced out, but company spokesmen say some were suspended, others left voluntarily. Union officials met in Chicago yesterday afternoon, prompting speculation of a strike. But by 5:30, word was sent for all employees to report back to work today. Company and union sources report most of the workers were back on the line this morning. Meanwhile, Wilson officials have asked federal bankruptcy judge Richard Bohannon to prevent union members from staging a work slowdown at the plant. Wilson filed Chapter 11 bankruptcy on April 22nd in order to break the union contract they said was leaving them uncompetitive. However, union officials say the company lost the money in the commodities market. Wilson executives have denied the charge. Union salaries have been cut by over 40%, and there is still a possibility an all-out strike will be called. Kevin Ogle, Action 4.
Together the first 2 years on even though it's not savings, even though spending could be increasing at 6, 8, 10, 15% per year. Venture to say that every person in this room, when you work on this item, but so many dollars, and just be very upfront. Supposedly, we have economists, experts, computers. So Congress is really being irresponsible. Congress is ignoring the limitations imposed upon it by the budget resolutions, and really I think is being irresponsible in the way that we handle our fiscal affairs. I am working with others in the Senate and also in the House, urging the President. We do not see really how we could come up with a good budget resolution that would have any type of fiscal constraint.
The building at 1608 Northeast 23rd was engulfed in smoke when firefighters arrived shortly before 11 last night. The dense smoke forced the firemen to battle the blaze from the rooftop. The structure housed two businesses, the American Car Rental and K&W Furniture, a company that just bought out the old store. Horace Hall had some equipment stored in the building. He lost everything.
Yeah, I used to have a shop in here. Used to have a shop in there.
Pretty upsetting to see it all like this?
Yeah, because I was thinking about going back into business soon and might have to buy it all over again.
It's about 5 minutes to get to actually body a fire because there was so much heat and smoke. And it took us about 30 minutes to bring it under control. According to our investigation now, it appears to be arson. Several fires were set in different places, and a couple of entrances was already open. So, very good indication it's arson.
An estimated $30,000 in damage was done to the building and its contents. Fire officials are continuing their investigation into the suspicious blaze later today. Debbie Mash, Action 4 in Northeast Oklahoma City.
The case has been removed by federal court to federal court, as the instruments on file in this case will indicate. The federal law and the supremacy clause of the Constitution, which requires this court to follow federal law, provides that once the documents are filed in this court, the case is removed, and this court lacks the power to further proceed.
Budget-wise, we're having a lot of problems. The city has had difficulties. We've had to have a hiring freeze. You know, it's no secret. The whole state, the whole country is having problems. We're having those problems. I think the economy is affecting us, but perhaps not as much as it's affecting other people. The zoo seems to be sort of, such a nominal fee to get in that it's the last thing to be slighted in a family's budget.
Vicky Cordova is a Bendectin user who feels the product should have been pulled a long time ago. Right now, she's suing the drug makers because she believes her use of Bendectin caused her son to be born with birth defects.
To me, even if there's the slightest chance of a drug causing birth defects, it should be taken off the market and thoroughly tested.
At a hearing in Washington, D.C. today, Merrill Dow Pharmaceuticals said yes, they are stopping sales because of lawsuits, but not because Bendectin has been proven unsafe. In fact, the FDA concluded after a long investigation that there was no link between the drug and birth defects. Many doctors here in Oklahoma agree.
This drug has been studied more than any other single drug in the history of mankind, and nobody was able to find any clear-cut evidence that it ever caused harm to a human fetus.
Hello, Jeannie.
Hi.
How are you?
Doctors across the nation have prescribed Bendectin to more than 30 million pregnant women having problems with morning sickness. There are alternatives now that the product is no longer available, but they all require prescription, so it's best to check with your doctor and get his recommendation before trying anything new. Using any drug can be dangerous when you're pregnant. Sherry Sellers, Action 4.
No question. No question.
Well, you know, if the message does not change, well, the message does change, given the black side of it, you've been unemployed. Mr. Reagan measures improvement by the inflation, by interest rates, but it doesn't make any difference what inflation is or what the interest rates are if you don't have any money. And in the case of black people, they have a very limited amount of dollars, given the fact that we have the highest amount of unemployment.
Some farmers in southwestern Oklahoma are surprised. They're surprised because this could be the best wheat crop they've ever produced. Fred Wyatt has been farming in Tillman County near Frederick for the past 16 years. His best crop so far, 40 bushels of wheat to the acre. He'll break that record this year. He's expecting 60 bushels to the acre. But even with an excellent crop, Wyatt says things aren't so rosy.
We're paying, well, right now I just got through getting a load of diesel this morning, 86 cents. And, of course, that has come from $1 and a nickel where it was at the peak. But 5 years ago, we were raising wheat for $3.50 to $4 even then. And our diesel was around 50 cents. And so you can look at the difference in our cost of production. I just don't figure out, unless you make an unusual yield like this, 60 bushel.
Wyatt's major concern, like most farmers, is the price of the product. He'd like to see wheat climb to $5 per bushel, but that's not likely going to happen with the abundant supply of wheat we now have in America. Some farmers expected the Reagan administration's payment-in-kind program to reduce the supply. But some agricultural leaders say even though the majority of farmers participated by idling a portion of their land, what land is in production is turning out excellent yields. So farmers are still facing the same problems: a low price for their wheat and the high cost of producing.
Punctuation marks do we use behind interrogative sentences?
This is summer school at John Marshall, and there's good news. John Marshall High School is one of only 50 in the country to qualify for a $20,000 grant from the Ford Foundation. The school had to demonstrate what it would do with a chunk of money that size. What made John Marshall qualify? The school's principal had this to say at a news conference.
We are not competing. We do not want to compete. What we want to do, though, is give the opportunity for any student who desires to come to Marshall to take a look at our programs, because we are convinced that we can tailor-make a curriculum to meet any student's needs at John Marshall because we are a large comprehensive high school.
The school will be able to start spending the money July 1st. It'll be used to strengthen the school's academic programs. And school officials say the money is just icing on the cake. It won't affect the usual budget for the school's 1,300 children. Bella Shaw, Action 4, at the school administration building.
To do that. So when we heard that
Agreed. Agreed.
Filthy and trouble.